Welcome to a special episode of Behind the Fence. This is our show about life in the Sierra foothills, where we sit down with community leaders, with local voices, and the people who call Mariposa County home. I'm your host, Rick Blaylock. If you enjoy real conversations that highlight our community, I really hope that you'll follow our show, share it with someone who loves this place as much as I do. I try to post new episodes once a week. As I can. I have a day job, but I do the best that I can. Today, however, we're starting an important series of conversations with candidates that are running for local office. I have reached out to all of the candidates, and I'm scheduling interviews as availability allows. I have a day job again, so sometimes it could be hard, so I'll be releasing these episodes as soon as we can get them scheduled. Each candidate will be asked the same set of questions. I want to note that we're going to be doing a District 1 interview today. I don't personally live in District 1, so I won't be voting for District 1. I also don't intend in any way to endorse candidates. My goal is really simple. I want to give a platform to voters, or for voters, to hear directly from those who are running for office and really help increase the visibility for all of our local candidates. And so with that, this is our first conversation, and I am happy to be here with Lisa Edelheit. Is that right?
That's correct.
I want to make sure I said it correctly. I apologize. Lisa, I'm really grateful for you joining. I do have one more special note, and that is I have a very high anxiety dog, and he's just having a good day today. So you might see him sitting here. I'll try to keep him occupied, but I really want to give you the time. So thank you for your flexibility with that, by the way.
Glad to have Buddy be part of the
interview. Buddy's going to hang out with us today. So Lisa, thank you again for coming. Can you tell me a little bit about your background? How long have you been in Mariposa County? Can we start with that?
Sure. So I've been in Mariposa County for about 40 years.
Wow, okay.
I came out here first in 1985. I came out here for a summer job. I was in school in Michigan State. I'm originally from Michigan, and I needed to do an internship to graduate, and I really wanted to be in San Francisco, and I didn't have any money or any way to get out here, and so they were advertising for summer jobs in Yosemite, and I thought, there's my ticket to California, is to come out and have a summer job and then work on this internship while I was out here. And then when I came to California, I distinctly remember I stayed the night in Fresno and then took the Gray Line bus in the next morning, and coming out at Tunnel View and seeing Yosemite for the first time, it was like, oh my goodness, like this is the best place ever. And I fell in love with Yosemite. And who wouldn't, right? It was just a great time there. I had a really wonderful summer there, and then I had the opportunity to go and finish up with the interview process for the internship, and I did an internship at the ACLU in San Francisco.
Okay.
So I did that, and then I was on my way to law school. That's why I did the internship at the law firm, and it was an interesting time in California. So when I came to the ACLU, it was when they were addressing the issue with Rose Bird. They were going to throw her off the California Supreme Court.
Okay.
And I don't know anything about any of this coming from Michigan.
Right.
And so they gave me an opportunity when I went there to either do law clerking work or to work on some of their First Amendment issues. And I decided I would go with the First Amendment issues. It sounded kind of interesting because I didn't know anything about the story. And I really enjoyed that, and I realized that that was really more of my passion, was talking to people, advocating for people, discussing different points of views with different people, and controversial issue like that was. And then at that point I thought, I don't think I really want to go to law school. I'm not really sure what I want to do. So I was in a quandary, came back to Michigan to finish my degree. And then I decided, well, Yosemite was so great, and maybe I'll just come back there for a little while and kind of decide what I want to do. And I already met who has since then become my husband, Charles, but I met him the first summer when I was in the park, and so came back to Yosemite and held a variety of jobs in Yosemite and worked there for a couple years, and then I got involved with the employee union up there. And so that was something that really interested me a lot. And while I was an employee in the park, I was an active member of the union and did a lot of things with them. And then I ended up going to work full-time for the union, representing concession workers in Yosemite.
Okay.
So that was with the Service Employees International Union.
Gotcha.
Is who I got started with. And Yosemite is a really special place.
It is.
And to live and work there is really different. What we have found, because I've always been connected to the Yosemite part of Mariposa, that it's kind of two worlds here in Mariposa. It's either people that are kind of connected to the park, and other people that are in Mariposa in
kind of
general.
Park adjacent. They're ranching or I see that. Yeah.
And so, and it's a really great, friendly community in Yosemite. And so, after spending time in the park, I also helped organize the employees in Mariposa County.
Okay.
And so we represented the general bargaining unit in Mariposa, which also the court employees.
Okay.
Were there as well.
Gotcha.
And so I did that work directly for 13 years, and then I became a regional director for SEIU and worked all over the Central Valley. Doing work like that. And so that was a really great career. Worked with a lot of different counties. And so in that role, I was with Mariposa, Fresno, Madera, Tulare, Kern, and Stanislaus counties is where we represented employees. And so working both in the public and private sector. And then I did that for 20 years, and then I decided to go into the world of public education. So I was doing that, and so I just retired 2 weeks ago.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Wow, wonderful.
Yes, I work for the California Teachers Association and really pushing to advance public education and working to get funding models and to represent largely rural schools. And so though I live here in Mid-Pines, I raised my son here in Mid-Pines. He went to school, well, not in Mid-Pines, but in Albertal, Yosemite. Went to school in Mariposa. Mariposa has never been part of my assignment.
Gotcha.
I just was an active parent and whatnot. And so that's kind of what I've been doing. But it's been, really amazing and rewarding work. Is to work with a variety of different people to make things better.
Gotcha.
To make jobs better, to improve people's living and working conditions.
Can I ask? You mentioned representing the concessionaires. I know that again, I would probably call myself one of those more Yosemite adjacent people. I love go to the park, but I'm not as aware or involved. The concessionaire has changed over the years, right? So
Yes.
It was Delaware North. It's Aramark right now. It was
Right. So when I started, it was Yosemite Park and Curry Company was when I started doing that work, and I worked for them. I never worked for the Delaware North at that point. I was working full time for SEIU.
I see. So you jumped, because I was just curious if there was still a representative. Just more curious.
Yeah, and so
Is
now
there still a way for folks to be represented as the company has changed?
Yes.
Over the years.
So the union has stayed, and what they did is it switched from the Service Employees International Union to Unite Here.
Okay.
So that's
Unite
who represent.
Here.
Yeah, and so what the unions were trying to do over a period of time is to get people more aligned with their industry. And SEIU was moving more into the public sector and largely into healthcare and county employees, and whereas Unite Here was largely in hotels and lodging and food service, and so it made sense.
Kind of a better realignment there.
Yeah, so they're there. But for people that don't know, Yosemite concession workers have been organized for a long time. The Teamsters have been there since World War II. Okay. So that's really long longevity with the Teamsters. They represent the skilled workers there, and then the other bargaining unit is pretty much everybody else.
Gotcha.
And then also recently, the National Park Service employees unionized.
Okay.
So they're in their process right now of getting their first collective bargaining agreement.
Wow, lots of organization. First of all, thank you, and thank you for answering that follow up. And one of the questions that I had was your involvement in the community, and it sounds like you have been involved in certain areas for forever, essentially.
Yeah, very long time. Is when we helped organize the county employees and did a lot of really good work here in Mariposa County and trying to change the salary schedule, improve the working conditions there, set patterns so that people could have longevity in the county, also career opportunities so we could train people and trying to recruit and retain quality employees. And so did that for a long time. And we really made a big impact when we organized. It was the first actual union in Mariposa County. And the guy who came here as the president was a very interesting character, and he ended up passing away shortly after coming to the area. And because we had done such good work and really collaborative with the county, we ended up asking them if they could put a memorial rock in town. And so if you ever noticed, if you go into the rest stop, there is a memorial rock that's there that was made in memory of Benny and Connie Zubowski, who he was the founding president of the local chapter up here. And so we went to the county board of supervisors and we asked them if we could put a memorial up, and because there was, again, really positive working relationship, they said yes. And so it's been there since 1994.
Oh, how wonderful. I did not know that. That's a fun fact. I mean, I know I drove by it. But good to know.
And there's a bench there, and there's a rock that's sitting there. And that was largely, we raised the money to do that out of the employees from Yosemite and Mariposa that did that.
Gotcha. Very cool. All right. So what is motivating you or motivated you to throw your hat in the ring for District 1? What was it that you were seeing there?
Well, I knew that Rosemary was not going to run, and it was going to be an open seat, and that I was retiring. And I have done this type of work for almost 40 years. I've worked up and down the state of California, and I understand county politics, county budgets. And so I just decided if there's going to be an open seat, there's so much that's going on right now that I felt I was probably more qualified to run for this race, because everything that happens in Mariposa is affected by what happens in Yosemite. And so there's all these changes that are going on at the federal level, and significant changes that are happening with that. And I felt it's important in District 1 to have that knowledge of Yosemite. And the people that I saw that were surfacing, that wanted to run, have no experience in Yosemite. And I just felt that was something that unique that I bring to the table, is that connection, because it's important that, we have that partnership with the park and representing the employees. Yosemite is the largest employer in Mariposa County. The concession employee is the largest private sector employer that's there. That's where a lot of the jobs are at.
Gotcha.
And then the Park Service is also there as well. They're smaller than the concession employees. So it was that, and just seeing the changes that have kind of happened. So having lived up here for nearly 40 years, we have been through, unfortunately, too many fires.
We have.
That has been like a huge issue. But the thing that changed the most, I think, for me personally, the most devastating thing was the 1997 flood. And that really changed everything.
I was in elementary school. I remember going by Woodland School and seeing some of the runoff and just the huge high water. I know the valley was way worse, but incredible. Yeah, I was a kid when that happened. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was pretty intense. So I was the union rep at the time, and so the employees that lived in the valley, they lost everything. It was the water came up really fast, and everything has changed in Yosemite since the 1997 flood. We had way more housing accommodations. There was more campgrounds. There was a lot more places to stay in the park, and a lot of employee housing got wiped out during
So you're
that
saying,
flood.
help me understand. So you're saying the 97 flood happens, employee housing and amongst a ton of other stuff gets wiped out.
Yes.
Devastating. But following that, the sort of rebuild was more visitor focused. Am I hearing that?
Well, that's a shift, kind of what's happening now. And what's really shifted is from more opportunities to stay in the park and be in the park to becoming a day use. And so there's a lot more day use that goes on because we've lost hundreds of campsites.
Right.
Curry Village lost a ton of its housing, its accommodations that were there. Yosemite Lodge lost a lot of its accommodations. So none of the guest accommodations have been rebuilt.
Okay.
So there's pressure that's dealing with that. And then also with the recent changes and the years and years of studying capacity in Yosemite, and I've been involved with many of those studies over the years and giving comments about that. Seeing the shift again is very concerning. What's going to be happening to our future of our national parks. Understood.
Yeah, absolutely. Lots of big changes, that's for sure. And so the reason for now is just because the timing works, if I'm hearing you correctly, with Rosemary not running for re-election. You're in a position of retiring after a long career, and so the timing, that's why it is the now, I guess. Because why now is my question, but it sounds like you already answered that.
And people have asked me over the years, Lisa, you should run for board of supervisor. And I'm like, no, I'm really busy. My job is very encompassing, and plus I had a child, and so we raised our son here, and so I just didn't ever feel. I feel like a board of supervisor position is really a full-time position. And if you're going to be good at what you're going to do, and I just never felt that I had the time to do that. But, all the things kind of lined up. And so here I see myself doing this.
So how do you view the role of a county supervisor then? What are some of the biggest responsibilities that you see exist with that type of position?
It's interesting because we have no incorporated cities here, so the 5 board of supervisors are the sole decision makers of our county, and I think it's important that whoever sits in these seats here has a good working knowledge of the various aspects of Mariposa County, understands county budgets. The role of the supervisor is to help set policy and ordinance, provide leadership for the community. And so these are all things that I think that, given my career, I feel like I'm kind of really well positioned to deal with this. One of my other big priorities is to foster a better relationship between Yosemite and the county, because everything that they do affects us in the park. And the relationship could be a lot stronger than it is. And when I was, asking around, when I was talking to the CAO about Mariposa County and some of the issues that he sees, he identified the big three employers in Mariposa County is the hospital, the county, and the school district, and not a mention at all of Yosemite. And I thought that was kind of interesting, knowing that that's where our largest private employer is, and so many people in District 1 work in Yosemite.
Right.
And he, that kind of disconnect that kind of goes on over there. And I know they're trying to build a relationship with the new superintendent, and there's been some changes in the Department of Interior to try to work better with the gateway communities, which I think is really important. So that's kind of where I kind of wanted to step in, seeing the direction going there, because unless you've lived and worked there, it really is kind of different. And so I just kind of see that very much as our role. And then the challenges we're facing right now, there's a lot of changes both at the state and federal level that will have a direct impact on Mariposa County. And having done a lot of work in various counties, work up here, I feel like I have, could hit the ground running because I understand county budgets, I understand how to lobby, and that a lot of what we need to do here, we need to work better with our state and federal agencies to affect change.
Gotcha. Specifically within District 1, and this is a super amateur moment of me, so I apologize. I know there's been, I think it's District 1, and correct me if I'm wrong, there is a proposed lodging. Is it Terramore?
Yes, the KOA Terramore
The KOA Terramore project. Is that District 1?
Yes, it is.
So forgive me, audience, I will be asking the same question of the others. I just couldn't remember.
Yes,
amateur moment.
Yes.
Can you tell me what your thoughts are about that? Because that's probably directly impacting your district.
You see the No Way KOA signs all over District 1. So at this point, they have put in for a pre-application, and it has not gone any farther than that. So they haven't advanced to actually move into an application process. There is a lot of concern in the community about that because it is a pretty large-scale project. But I think before anything goes forward with that, they're going to have to kind of address the water issues, the land use issues, and things like that. So one of the things that is currently happening in Mid-Pines is we are trying to adopt a plan, a community plan. They have been working on this since 2013, and my husband Charles was on the very first committee with that. He was appointed by Art Baggett when he was our supervisor. So the adoption of that plan will also dictate kind of what will be allowed in that particular area where they want to build the KOA.
Do you know when they hope to have that plan
we hope it gets
approved, I guess, or ratified?
It is supposed to be on the board's agenda on Tuesday the 21st.
Exciting. So it's getting done.
It's getting done, yeah. So it just passed the Planning Commission, and it is slated, there's a public hearing at 2 o'clock on April 21st to adopt that plan. And so...
so will that impact or restrict, I guess,
it will define
a project like Terramore to the KOA project from moving forward, or
it's not going to restrict it, but it's going to kind of define. And I think really the issue is that if they actually come forward and put forward with an actual application, CEQA requirements and a lot of different things would need to happen. And I think they're going to have to do a lot of mitigation before a project like that would be approved, because the landowners around there are very concerned about water use and what that would look like.
I guess I'll push a little bit. Can you share your personal, do you feel like this is something that could move forward? Do you want it not to happen?
I'm very concerned about the scale of the project right now. I think having a concept like having an RV park in Mariposa is a good thing for Mariposa, but I think the size of what they have proposed is very problematic. And for me also is that there's no real fire escape. And so I'm concerned about putting that type of a development in a residential area and there's no other roads that are access out to that. And so to me, it kind of creates... And this is one of my concerns that I have in general of where we're at, Mid-Pines, is like a paradise situation, is that we don't have enough.
It's like paradise, yeah.
Yeah, we don't have enough access, and that is a super overgrown area. So it's 1,000 acres, and I know that the KOA folks have been doing some clearance on that property right now, but it's backs up into it's on both sides of Highway 140 off of Triangle. It's 1,000 acres is what they own right now, and I think putting that number of people in that area without some major changes to roads and access is asking for problems.
I gotcha. Okay.
And personally, I'd be very nervous to see all these campfires out in this area.
The little fire range or the pits.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's kind of stuff
August.
It's, and
sure.
and I
think we all would be, yeah.
Yeah. So that kind of raises some very big concerns for me. So it depends on what the project would actually look like.
Gotcha.
But I think we do need to be open to some development in Mariposa, and that's kind of been the issue here. We're always challenged with, we want growth, we want to kind of move away a little bit from being a tourist-based economy and relying on what happens in Yosemite. But when projects are proposed, people come out from the woodwork and shoot it down, and not my backyard.
Yeah, the NIMBY, I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of a problem. So I think we need to be creative and allow appropriate types of development here. But that is really a huge project right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate that. We've talked about, and I just want to give you an opportunity as well. You've shared some of the concerns and the issues that you see. Can you talk about if you were elected, what would your top priorities be going in as that role?
So one of my top priorities is to address that relationship with Yosemite.
Gotcha.
and get better on that, because I think the communication could be better between the park and the county, and how we work together. For District 1, that's where a lot of our jobs are. I'm also very interested and concerned about reducing the threat of wildfire.
Okay.
We have not burned in Mid-Pines, it's burned all around us.
Yeah,
and so it's incredibly overgrown. There's a huge fuel load that's there. And in order to address the high cost of insurance, that is a huge issue that we're all facing. Just like most people in the area, we recently lost our homeowners insurance. And our only option that is left is the FAIR plan. And as we all know, it is unfair.
It's very expensive.
And very expensive.
Yes.
And doesn't cover much. So that's like a big issue. But in order for us, I think, to get the insurance companies to continue to rewrite here in this area, we're going to need to do our part to help reduce that threat.
So it's going to be a fuel reduction. Am I hearing you correctly? I'll show you later. We're at my house in Lush Meadows, and there's been some grant funding just behind my house where they went and I just threw water at you on camera. Terribly sorry. I'm so embarrassed. Are you all right?
I'm totally okay.
Well,
okay.
These are uncut interviews, so sorry about that.
Yeah.
How embarrassing. We're gonna keep going, but I'll say, like, they cleared out a whole ton of that overgrowth, and that was a concern of mine. There's a hill behind my house, so are you thinking things like that, like grant funded kind of mastication and clear out of those things? Yeah,
and it took us a while, but we applied for a grant through USDA, and we just did a big mastication project on our property as well.
Great.
And so we also live right by the Sarah Priest allotment, and they are doing a big mastication project there too. So we're very happy to see that.
So we're working on it.
Yes.
We're trying to get there.
Yeah. And so that's seeing that kind of happen. I'm also excited the county just entered into an agreement with CAL FIRE that they are going to be staffing the Mid-Pines fire station for the first time during the fire season. So that's a huge issue with that, and kind of fostering that relationship. There's been conversations through the fire advisory committee to kind of create some what they call the good neighbor agreements, which really kind of bettering relationships and mutual assistance between federal and state and county agencies. So I see that as a possibility to really kind of help us get our fuel reductions.
So what does success look like? If you get elected for your term, or multiple terms potentially, right? If you get reelected, what would you look back and say, this was a success? What would that look like?
I'd like to see, we are in the beginning stages in a lot of the communities in District 1 to start FireWise. I think actually some of them are getting certified, but to actually make that successful.
For those, I hate to cut you off, for those that don't know what FireWise is, can you share a little bit about what that
So a FireWise recognized community is when a group of people get together in a defined area, and that we are working to reduce the fuel load. And so the actual commitment to be FireWise is you have to do 1 hour a year of brush work on your property. So keeping the FireWise up is not hard, but it's creating it. So it's defining your boundary, what is going to be your community, and then doing a risk assessment and going to the different properties and seeing what is the risk that exists.
What's the real risk at this house, at this property?
Right, and so we got to be really clear with that. It's not coming in to inspect your property for code enforcement or violations, but it's more like, what is the risk that lives here, and then trying to connect the homeowners with resources. And so if you need a defensible space, how do we get that? Our Resource Conservation District has access for help you with the assessment and loans. How do you harden your house? Like, do you need to vent off or screen off your vents? Do you need to change your roofing? Do you need different types of siding? Do you need to cover your gutters? And so taking a look at that and assessing the risk that's there, and then working together as a community to try to clean it up. And as we talk to people, most people do way more than an hour's worth of work a year.
Yeah, I do like an hour every day.
Yeah, exactly. So keeping it up is not hard. It's just kind of getting it together. And what's cool about the Firewise is that whenever we have a natural disaster, people really come together and support each other big time. So let's flip the script. Let's come together before the natural disaster. Yes, and be proactive and try to mitigate that. So to me, having actual Firewise certified communities that are doing the work and actually reducing the risk, that would be success for me. Another big concern I have is around workforce housing. And that is a huge problem. And when I talk to people, it's getting into home ownership is really problematic. And
the cost of living is very high. It's been amplified by, the most recent 100+ homes that were lost in the last fire we had. Sorry.
So again, it is a problem. And so we have a lot of jobs in Yosemite, but they're not filled like other jobs because of housing. And so when we talk about workforce housing, I'd like to see more of the housing for Yosemite go back into the Albertel area. And for people that lived up here for a long time, the most vibrant, affordable family housing was the Albertel Trailer Court. That existed for many years. That is on federal land, but it was all privately owned. And so that's where families lived. And it was the one area in Albertel that did not flood in 1997 because prior to that, they had built a dike in the Merced River, so that area is not, they may say it's in the floodplains, but it really never flooded. And I think having more housing closer to Yosemite, I think there may be opportunities in Rancheria, which is the federal land. But we should be looking at potentially reallocating the housing that exists in Yosemite Valley. So for example, the concessionaire, they have quite a bit of housing that's there. A lot of it is somewhat substandard. But the executives have housing up there. And they're the ones who make the most amount of money as opposed to the hourly employees. And so there's a lot of that housing that we may be able to reallocate that in a better way.
So you're saying, like, for example, if I'm a executive director of whatever at the concessionaire, I'm making significantly more than the boots on the ground worker, but I have housing there. And we're saying that it would be more reasonable to provide or reallocate the existing housing that's there for the person that might be able to afford a home at today's prices to the people that cannot. Is that correct?
Yes.
Gotcha.
And so, that's the purview of the concessionaire, but these are conversations that I think would be worthy of having.
At least talking with them about it.
And one of the things that, we advocated for when I was the union rep in Yosemite, because all these plans have been looked at for many, many years in Yosemite. There was the 1980 General Management Plan, there's been housing studies, was to really advocate, to have employees closer to where they live. It's environmentally better to do that. And so at one point they were wanting to move more people out of Yosemite Valley and move all the cars out. And so
buses only.
Exactly. So that was one of the controversial plans that are out there. But one of the things that I have the skill set with is we did massive advocacy around that issue and working with the union. People love Yosemite. And so we had people, our union members aligned throughout the country testify, because when they were doing these original plans, there was public hearings throughout the country. And so we had people testifying all over the place, plus we were at congressional hearings. One of the things that we were able to get permission from the National Park Service was to bring in one of the SEIU had these big trailers, 45-foot trailers that have been equipped to become communication centers. And so we asked the park, because commercial trucking is not allowed in the park, but we got permission from the Park Service to bring in one of these big SEIU communication trucks. And my husband, Charles, who's a Class A driver, had the ability. So we flew him down to Los Angeles, and we worked out an arrangement with the union that owned the truck, drove the truck up to Yosemite. We parked it in Curry Village for several weeks, and we brought all these employees and visitors to come in to write comments about housing and what we needed to have. And it was pretty cool that we were able to kind of do that. And ultimately we were successful in getting the Curry Village housing units built.
Wow.
And that was it was a 20-year plus kind of battle.
Yeah.
But that's persistence and the kind of things that we worked on. Unfortunately, where they ended up putting the housing is what they consider to be the rockfall zone, the fly zone.
Yep.
And so it's kind of close. And so a couple of the buildings they can't habitate because of danger of rockfall zone.
Right.
But there's, we have these terrible housing units that are up there right now. So I think there's ways that we should be talking about consolidating that in some nicer homes. The concession contract between National Park Service and Aramark, they were supposed to build 435 new beds.
Really?
Which
that was a part of their existing contract?
Yeah, it's in the existing contract.
And
that hasn't happened.
Happen?
It has not happened.
Isn't their contract up for
it comes up in 15 years.
Oh,
yeah.
15 years. Okay.
Yeah. So, and they've already been there for several years.
Gotcha.
And so, things like that to keep talking about. There's even additional pressures right now on lodging because the Wawona Hotel is closed. That's over 100 some odd units that are down, and that is indefinite. That is closed. There's a lot of.
I just saw a recent post about it, and there's no reopening date.
No reopening date. No. It's our oldest historic resort in California, and so it gets battered with the weather. So I can understand it needs some upgrades, but that's kind of sad what's going on with that as well. So seeing some more workforce housing. I also think we need to be creative about what we're doing. I'm glad to see that we passed an ordinance for the limited density rural housing that's there for owner builders, which will allow owners to build and not have to put in the fire sprinklers and the solar and maybe help cut down on the cost of that. But I also think I'd like to see us have more cooperative type housing like Idle Wheels.
Yeah.
I think there's opportunities to do that and bringing in tiny houses because I think things like that can help get to that first ownership. That's what people are looking for is their entrance into being able to own something. The other big issue we have here is just too much low wages. And even if people can get into a home, to maintain it, I mean, it's super expensive with insurance and everything else that's there. And looking at the median income here in Mariposa, it's around $53,000. But our biggest sector is in food service, lodging.
Right.
Those folks, the median income there is around $30,000. You cannot really afford to live on that.
Okay.
To me, also other priorities is recruiting and retaining good quality employees at the county level, partnering better with our schools and with our hospital. I would like to see us have more pathways in the school and talking with our local businesses so that we can actually kind of create programs so that kids that can come out of high school can
like
find
a roadmap,
work.
Something they can get into.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I did when I was with the California Teachers Association, working with a lot of the different school districts. One of the things that we really worked hard on was to establish good pathways in the career tech programs. And then talking to the local communities and what are people looking for here? How do we model our schools with the right pathways?
Sure, yeah.
So one of the things we do well in Mariposa is around fire, but that's about it. So
we have a great fire program.
We have a great fire program.
High school,
Yes, a really good fire program. We should have more types of programs like that. And so some of the communities that I worked in was that we talking, what did they have needs? They had needs in law enforcement. They had needs for hospitality. They had nursing. Sports medicine became very popular in some of the schools that kind of worked with, and so one of the things that we did was to try to incentivize people to become career tech educators, because that's been another big 40-year battle that I help advocate for. Is that people don't know that the public school teachers in California don't get access to Social Security. And so there's 13 states in the country where they decided to not contribute to Social Security. Okay. And California was one of them. That's not everybody, but the educators were in this world. And so in order to become a CT, career tech educator, you have to have private sector experience.
Gotcha.
And so if you're in the private sector, you have Social Security. Then you come into the school setting. The laws up until just recently was that you had a big offset, so it would take a big portion of your Social Security away from you.
Gotcha.
And so that's been really unfair. That was just remedied a couple of years ago, and so it makes it more attractive to come in to become a career tech educator.
Gotcha.
Also working to like adjust salary schedules that people want to come in and do that kind of work.
Yeah, and the federal government, for example, recently they have different locality pays that exist, and they recently created one. If you didn't have a specific locality, it was rest of the U.S., I think was the title for federal employees. And then they created one based off of Fresno, and that included Mariposa County. It wasn't very much more, if I looked at it correctly, than the rest of the U.S., but that hopefully, could be a good change that could help for the federal employees that live here.
Well, actually, it's their change of classification to the new region will result in big pay cuts going forward. Yeah, so it's about a 12 or 13% reduction from where they were. So existing
for federal employees?
For the federal employees, yeah. So the existing employees will stay on their current pay scale, but if you promote or transfer, you'll go on to the new pay scale and you get a big pay cut. That is hugely problematic.
What was the pay scale before?
It was tied to.
I know we're delving out of county into the federal. I'm just curious.
But I believe it was either tied to. I think it was tied to the Bay Area.
Okay.
Somewhere around there. But yeah, this is relatively new that this is happening. So I've heard a lot of complaints about that. Obviously, it's a little bit different.
Totally different world. I get it. Yeah.
I think the Board of Supervisors, because these are our county residents that are impacted by this, we should be working with our Congress people about adjusting this. This is not.
I would argue that if the federal government did some big study to evaluate salary scales and try to move people into more effective salary scales, that could be a data point for county or for even private sector to gauge off of, to go, are we paying similar? Is someone going to jump to go to the feds for more money? Yeah. Theoretically, so I think that could be a good data point that we should look at.
Yeah. Other priorities for me is about county roads. That's a huge issue. I hear that all over the place about the condition of our roads, and it's been a problem for a while. We don't invest enough, and up to the studies that we do have is that we would need to be investing over $100 million to get our roads up to better standards, just to so we're just barely even maintaining low standards right now. So we need to figure out how to reallocate resources for that. Many of our communities, there's no other way out. And so that was a discussion we had last night in Ponderosa Basin, because their back way out, Harris Cutoff Road, is a dirt road that's in bad shape. Yeah. And so if we have to do a big evacuation, that's a problem. Mid Pines, that's a huge problem. There is no other evacuation. And so like during the Oak Fire, they closed 140 and there was lack of communication with the Park Service. And so people are still coming out of Yosemite, traveling down 140, and then you get to a point where the road is closed. And so the only way out is to go up Colorado Road or Sherlock Road. And those roads are dirt and dangerous. They're narrow, they're steep, they're not well maintained. And so people that had RVs and trailers, it was a disaster, right, for people kind of coming through there. So to me, that's one of the other things I'd like to see is us creating fire escapes in some of these communities. I think we should have learned from what happened at Paradise. We're very similar to that, and making our communities a little bit safer. Other issues that I'm really wanting to work on is again recruiting and retaining quality employees for the county. Yeah. We have to go to outside consultants a lot because we don't have the expertise and staff, and I think some of those are expensive. And many of the reports that came back are kind of boilerplate and not really tailored to Mariposa County. So we're spending a lot of money and not getting a lot out of that. And I think the county can fill its positions that don't require advanced degrees. And so we're struggling with getting the engineers, the lawyers, the nurses, the upper level medical profession people that are here. And so we have to go outside for that to happen. And I think there's ways that we can kind of address some of that. And again, working with the schools. A lot of schools have really emphasized more dual enrollment so that you can graduate from high school with an associate's degree. I'd like to see more of that stuff. I would love it if we could do internships or apprentices with the county. So one of the things that we did in public education is that we will help pay to get your degree if you agree to work at a low-performing school for a period of time.
Yes, I'm familiar with that, actually. Yeah.
So I think there's things like that we can be creative with because I know there's a lot of people would like to stay here in Mariposa that were raised here. Yeah. And how do we create the jobs that they can afford to do that?
I think with new technologies too, a lot of work from home type positions or even advances in internet connectivity, I would argue could help things. I know that Sierra Tel's looking at some new technologies that could provide higher bandwidth. I know there's things like satellite connectivity that is much higher bandwidth, and that's a big, I'm a tech guy, so if you can't tell, right? So that's a big factor, though, that could help attract and even bring in companies or businesses that might have been interested in coming up here but going, can't make it, that those types of things could help. So I think that could be a good way to promote, I guess, make this area more attractive.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And COVID showed us a lot of that. That was pretty wild when that all happened. And it became really clear that more of us in the rural communities didn't have connectivity. And so the rural, like the schools, an example, when the schools were closed, we ended up working in a lot of districts to get hotspots out, to get connectivity happening. And it was difficult here. We have all these mountain ranges and hills in the way. It's very problematic. But I think access to broadband and attracting new home industries is really important.
I'll take as fast as I can get, because I'm a tech nerd. I'll take as much as I can get. Yeah. Well, that was great. I do have an interesting question that I want to ask everybody. I think this is an important one. I thank you for sharing your goals, your priorities, what success looks like. I really appreciate that. I think the audience is really going to appreciate that. But I think a big question that I've seen on social media channels that I've tried to boil it down into a respectful question is that, and I'm going to read it because, as best as I can here. In our current environment, current world that we don't need to really talk about the national and international, just kind of environment that we're in, I think that people often view local leadership with a national political lens, right? And so what would you say to voters who may not share your broader political views? I've seen things online, well, this person's on this side of the aisle and that person's on that, so therefore I'm not going to. What would you say to someone who might not share your personal broader political views? Not that they exactly know them, but why should they still consider voting for you as District 1 Supervisor?
Well, I think all politics are local, for one, and I think the issues that mostly affect us are across all political arenas. So affordable housing, access to health care, dealing with the fire threat that's there, our road conditions. That doesn't matter what political
That's not a red versus blue question.
Right,
sure.
Exactly. And so I have spent my entire career working with all types of people. And I think that's one of the greatest strengths that I would bring to the Board of Supervisors. Regardless of your political affiliation, we're working together here to solve common issues. And let's take public education as an example. And we could be at all different aspects of that, but we're coming together to work to provide for our students and to build a better opportunity for people in our state and our country. And working together doesn't matter. And so I'm really good at that. It doesn't in being able to bridge those gaps with people, because when people ask some of these controversial questions, they're trying to create a divide. And I'm not going to go into that. That's not relevant. It doesn't help us move the dial forward. It's just divisive.
Right.
And so let's talk about the things that we care about. Let's talk about how we're going to fix our roads, how we're going to reallocate resources to get what we have here. How do we help save our hospital that we all kind of care about?
Sure,
and sticking on those common issues, and then just deflecting that in a way, because I think it is to create antagonism and to be divisive for no good reason.
I think it's too simplified. My personal opinion, right? I would agree with you. And then the heart was not to cause controversy with the question, but more just, it is a valid question, because I think that people boil each other down unnecessarily and say, well, this person's this side of the aisle, therefore anything that they say or anything that they want to do is not sufficient. And I think that we're smarter than that as a culture and as a society. And even if we might have ideological differences, I think it's important to at least ask that question, because yes, it probably does influence what one's priorities would be at a local level. But at the same time, like I said, we're just better than that. So I wanted to make sure that I just give an opportunity to share, if someone voted for a different president than you.
Yeah. Well,
should they still vote for you, and why? Yeah,
and so in the labor movement, we're very divided that way on politics, but we all come together for the common reason. We want better jobs. We want safe working conditions. We want to be able to provide for our families. We want affordable health care. And so we work well together with those issues. And I have a really good track record of that. And I've always kind of viewed my role as partnering with our employers, because we want the same thing. And particularly in the public sector, when we're not really fighting over profits, we could do so much more together. And I'm really passionate about our rural issues, because I've chosen to live in this rural environment and I love it. We raised our son here. He'd like to stay here in Mariposa County, and hopefully he can find decent work that he'll be able to buy property and live here himself. But being able to advocate on the level to really get people to understand. And one of the things I'm proud of that we worked on for a really long time is, again, in world of education, is that when they changed the funding formula for how schools were funded, they fixed transportation at a fixed cost.
Right.
And I'm like, oh my God, that is hugely problematic. So our schools
There's not enough room on the buses right now for kids.
Well, there's that, but we're funded by average daily attendance. And so if we don't provide transportation, a lot of kids can't get to school. You don't get to school, there's no funding. So we need, in the rural areas, we really rely on busing of our kids.
We do.
It's huge. And when they fixed that in 2013 and never gave an adjustment, this is a couple of years ago, constantly lobbying when there was an opportunity to talk about partnering with our small school districts and getting that voice to Sacramento, how important it is that we need money for transportation because the cost of fuel is going up, maintenance on buses and all that stuff.
The miles. I mean, our miles driven for a bus driver doing a route is massively more than a suburban area or even a city, of course.
So consistently kind of pushing that. And guess what? We got that change. So now transportation gets a COLA like everything else does. And so it's not perfect, but we're moving it in the direction. So those are the kinds of things, because it didn't matter what side of the aisle you were on. It was, we all cared about getting our kids safely to school. Yeah. So I have like you said, a strong track record of being able to really work well across the aisle, partnering with people and solving our problems.
Well said. I appreciate that. Last question that I have for you, and before, of course, I want to give you an opportunity to share whatever you'd like to share, but I think there's always competing priorities in a role, and you just shared a lot. You talked about housing, insurance, Yosemite relationships, education, all these wonderful things that you shared. What is your approach when it comes to like seeking compromise, though? You're not always going to get what you want. You're going to have, you might vote for things. How do you approach that in general?
I think it depends on also listening to the residents, like where their priorities are, and trying to build that coalition with 3 people on the Board of Supervisors. Sometimes it's going to take 4 of us to do it, but it'll take 3 of us. But it's I think it's trying to articulate the needs and then figuring out where are those priorities. But that is going to be a problem. And I think we're going to see more pressure on Mariposa County going forward with the potential cuts that are out there. They were, I was just at a behavioral health meeting, and they were talking about the implementation of HR 1, which is really going to significantly change eligibility requirements. And also there's been big shifting in how mental health services are delivered. So it's going to create issues here for Mariposa County, and we're going to have to kind of figure that out here. Are we putting resources here in our roads? Are we putting resources here into housing development or healthcare and things like that?
Gotcha.
Yeah,
I appreciate that. Well, I want to give you an opportunity. Well, I have one last question for you that I ask everybody.
Okay.
What is the one thing you love the most about living here?
I love having Yosemite in our backyard. I think and I just love Mariposa. I like the sense of community that's here. We have a fabulous arts community here, really vibrant art and music.
My episode with the Mariposa Arts Council posted last night.
Okay.
Go check it out.
Yeah. So that's one of the things I have really valued about being here, is being out in open nature, having this wonderful place in our backyard. Sense of community is really strong here. I feel really supportive in this environment. So I've only been here 40 years, and some people will say, well, you just got here, you're kind of a new timer that's here. But I've seen a lot of changes over the 40 years, and for a long time I felt like, I'm still such a newcomer here. But then I think back of all the things that have happened since the 80s when I got here, and things I've been involved with. I feel really connected to the community, and I love the rural nature that we have here, and that I've seen some other communities really fight really badly, and I just I haven't experienced that personally. I think again, trying to be a more collaborative type person. It's nice that we have this friendly and help your neighbor out kind of a environment that's here. And so other things I'd like to see is, I know we always talk about trying to get Mariposa recognized as its own, and I think we've had some great events, and I'd like to see us promote more of our arts in our events, because we bring so many people from all over the place. And when I go to the fair, I go to the Butterfly Festival, we're talking to different people and find out there's people coming from all over because they love our events that go on here. And so I think there's things that we can continue to foster, because when people come up here for events, they are spending money in our hotels and our restaurants and our gift shops, and and I always get this real positive feedback. And now we're in the rafting season right now, promoting our local rafters, and tourists bring in a lot of money for the rafting season.
Absolutely. Well, this has been wonderful. I want to make sure that there's an opportunity. Anything else you want to share with our audience that's watching? Anything else you want to communicate with them before we wrap this up?
No, I just hope that that we continue to find solutions for Mariposa County, and continue to talk to each other and to not get locked into the divide, because I think that is unnecessary. And I think that we can do so much more together. And I do, back to the election at hand. I mean, I firmly believe that I'm the most qualified person to run for the District 1, and that's largely because so much is in Yosemite. And that I think that's so important to understand that the park culture that exists there, because that's why we have representational elections, and so District 1 is very much a part of that. But the other thing is about the employee perspective. I wanted to make sure I bring that forward, because we talk a lot about, with the day use reservations, that has a huge impact on the employees, and people that live outside the park and commute. It is really hard to get into the park. So sometimes traffic.
Yeah.
And there's no way around that. And so it's really stressful. Already commuting on the 140 corridor is stressful.
I've seen some, I got to be honest, I've seen some what I would assume to be park employees driving a little risky, maybe
That's
doing
correct.
some of those
There's that, because
passing on those roads.
Passing
there.
on the roads,
Yeah.
it's a dangerous road. The tourists go slow. The employees get frustrated. Yeah. The Ferguson issue has been very problematic. Huge. I mean, that has been a 20-year thing. Thankfully, they're working on that right now. But it adds to the day. So we talk about we want good jobs. There are good jobs in Yosemite, but it's hard to get there. And so when we don't have any sort of mechanism for the employees to get to work, so the new superintendent doesn't think we need to have reservations. I'm concerned about that.
Yeah, they nixed that this year. That's correct.
And so they nixed that. And then Horsetail was a good example of what a nightmare it was. And so the weekend of Valentine's Day, when it was really good conditions, it was 3 hours on 140 to get in. It was, you have to talk to the employees that actually work that will tell you what it was.
How do you get to work? I mean, if you have a shift that starts at 8 a.m. and you leave, Mid-Pines at 7:15.
It's hugely problematic. And so they're stuck in line. They tried for a very brief time to pull employees out so they can get around, but you can't. When you go up that Alpertel Road, it's you and the river, right? So there's no, once you start getting up there, you get the rock wall, there's no way around. So it creates a very stressful environment. The employees can't get to their jobs. They're short-staffed. Then by the time you finally do get to work, the guests are stressed as well, because they've been spending hours in their car driving around trying to find a place to park.
Bathroom,
but there's so many people that are there. Then they want to get something to eat. There's a huge line to get food. It's really problematic. It is not a good visitor experience. But I'm also seeing the stress that it creates for the employees. When you're under that type of a load, commuting both directions in that, then your day all day long is very stressful, and dealing with very angry guests that are there. Yeah. Then there's also the degradation of the resources. So I'm concerned about that, and I don't understand what research the Park Service has to throw out nearly 50 years of studying this particular issue. I haven't seen it.
To get rid of the
reservation system. Anecdotally, we're up in the park all the time, and we have a park sticker, and we get stuck in that traffic all the time. So a lot of employees I've talked to are very worried about what this summer is going to look like. And I think when they talk about, we're just going to implement these different strategies, we're just going to have people come during the week. Well, okay, that doesn't really work. People come when they can come. We're going to redirect traffic. And I'm like, where are they going to go? So if you understand the geography in Yosemite, everybody comes in same way. Yeah. And there's no Wi-Fi in the River Canyon or at the entrance station. So the text alert system that you can sign up for, you don't get it. So there's no way to be alerted in advance when you get there. And then when people get into the valley, if the parking lots are full, they're going to redirect you. Well, it depends on the time of year. Glacier Point's closed, the Tiger Road's closed, and then to redirect people to these other locations, that's an hour drive.
Yeah.
And so people don't realize, okay, well, you can just go over here. Well, Hatchechi's an hour, Glacier Point's an hour, Big Trees. I mean, all these things are really far away. If you're traveling with a family, you may not know that. And so I just think it's kind of unrealistic, some of the things they said that they're going to do to mitigate that.
Gotcha. So as supervisor, though, if you were elected for supervisor, because you talked about relationship building, but then we're all talking about, we disagree with you. So how do we work with that?
Having that discussion and getting, because these are new people that are in running this park, they've not experienced this, is having conversations with them about that, because I think they're also going to see directly the stress
Gotcha.
that's happening, and then the impact on visitor services.
So you think they'll probably have a rough summer, and then they'll probably flip it back on the reservations
I
after
think
this year?
we just need to have conversations with that and see what did it look like. We're hearing that the superintendent is saying that he thinks there's going to be record visitation this year. I think that'd be great, because we certainly would love to have it. But there's also a concern, with what's happening with our international visitors and the passes and the costs are going into that. And so it appears that international travel is significantly down. I think that's not only a problem for Mariposa, but I think it's a problem for California because tourism is one of our big industries in the state of California.
Yeah.
So
especially Mariposa.
Especially Mariposa. So we have a lot of stuff that's kind of coming on, and just having those conversations, I think, and bringing that perspective. Here's what happens to the county and the people that live in the county. Here's what happens to the employees that live and work here, and just really kind of like working better together so we each understand the perspectives we're coming from.
I love that. And I'd love to talk to the park superintendent, so if anybody knows him,
let me
know.
Yeah, we've met him a couple times.
I'll drive up there, and we'd love to sit down and have a conversation. I think that'd be great. But, this has been fantastic, and I'm thankful for you taking the time to sit down, share your perspectives. I really appreciate it. Thank you to everyone who's been listening. Again, this is a part of a series of conversations with the candidates for District 1 Supervisor. I'm also reaching out and trying to contact the candidates for Assessor Recorder. Hope to have those up as our schedules all work. We're going to keep asking the same set of questions to the other candidates and really help to provide a consistent look at each candidate. We're going to be dropping these episodes as soon as I can on Behind the Fence on YouTube, on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts. If you found this helpful, please share this show with others. Share with others who are interested in, who live in District 1 and want to know what the candidates are about, and they could hopefully learn more from conversations like this one. So until then, we'll see you next time, and thank you so much for joining us today. Anything else for the group?
Thank you, Rick. I appreciate the opportunity to kind of share my thoughts. And for anybody, you can see some more information on Facebook. And I'm hosting a meet and greet, or the Bug is hosting a meet and greet for me on Sunday, April 26th from 4 to 6 p.m. outside in the deck at the Yosemite Bug in Mid-Pines. You're welcome to join me there, and love to connect with people a little bit more and share some of my thoughts and my enthusiasm for Mariposa County.
Love it. Love the Bug. They have some great food.
Yes.
So, all right. Well, thank you again so much, and we'll get this posted, and we'll see you next time. Thank you very much.